So when someone has had a genuine experience of the awakened state, no matter how long that lasted, there are certain things that lodge in one's psyche that will not and cannot ever go away again. And it's quite challenging to share those things. Most of the time you can't share them. And so when you come before someone who has awakened, or you look into the deep writings of the awakened, or the things that have been spoken, you often see certain things that are never spoken. And if you dig deeper, you will sometimes come to those truths. Or if you're around someone, then they could come out. But for me, these are the three great lies, in a way, that should never be revealed, or very rarely. And the first of them is you have no free will. This is a very difficult thing for humans to understand. We love the fact that we have free will. I call it a fact, because it feels like a fact. And if we don't have free will, what does that mean? It means we're machines. It means we are devoid of, our true humanity, what makes us special. And so, where does that leave us? So this first truth that you realize in the awakened state, that there is no free will, is not as it seems. Because when you enter into that awakened state, there is no chooser anymore. There is no one available to make a choice. So if there's no chooser, then there is no choice. There is no free will. There is only the whole making its spontaneous choices. And in that sense, there is no free will. But when the ego, which often returns after the awakened experience, when the ego comes in, it has to grapple with that. And that can be hard, because other humans also do not want to hear this. It's interesting that brain science, neuroscience, has actually now proven that there's no free will at some level, in that the microprocesses of the neurotransmitters in our brain are firing split seconds before our awareness takes place, which means that we are reacting and responding to our environment and to life at a deep unconscious level that's just taking place through us. So if you make a decision, that decision is made in your brain a split second before you're aware that the decision has been made. So something inside you has made that decision, but it wasn't you. It was not your ego. Your ego then just jumps aboard and goes, oh, I've made a decision, because the ego thinks it exists. But in the awakened version of that, there is no individual ego to exist. There is just the choice. And that's why it's been called choiceless awareness. There is great freedom as well in this statement, there is no free will. But there's also a great confusion that can happen, because if the ego gets hold of that statement, it's a mess. So when the ego gets hold of that statement, there's no free will, it says, oh, well, I can do anything then. I can do anything I want, and there's no consequences, and, it's not even me doing it. I don't have to have the responsibility for killing someone or, anything I do. You see, and that's the dilemma. That's why this truth cannot be shared with those that do not understand. And the second lie that's told, or not told, truth that's withheld, which flows out of this, is that nothing matters. Nothing matters. And it flows from there is no free will. Nothing matters. If there's no free will, then nothing matters. But again, you can't say to the ego, nothing matters, because the ego will run riot, will run rampant. But at the deepest level, and that's on many levels, so there's another level of this, which is we live on the planet of suffering. And there's a huge amount of things on the planet of suffering that matter. You know, there are people in absolute pain being subjected to the most horrendous things right now as we speak. Let's say the young women in Afghanistan, for example, under the rule of the Taliban. We can't even imagine what might be going on behind closed doors in that situation. So if one of those young women came out and shared what was going on in her life and how awful it was, you would not say to that person, nothing matters. Because nothing matters takes away our humanity. At the deepest level, nothing matters because choice is not happening through us. Life is simply happening. And nothing matters also takes away good and evil. It takes away the goodies and the baddies. It takes away the theatre, the stage, the drama. Because we don't have any control, it's all just playing itself out according to rules or laws or dharma or karma. Things are happening, and they're happening perfectly. And even in their imperfection, they're happening perfectly. And the evolutionary principle is moving towards a state of harmony, but it has to go through all kinds of disharmonies. So, nothing matters is a profound truth that in the hands of the ego or the wrong understanding is devastating. I could be, crucified for making that statement, because everything matters on this planet of suffering. Everyone matters, and there's so much that we can do to improve things, and that is the worldly phenomenological world that we live in. But to the awakened being that lives outside the theatre, nothing matters is a truth. It's the deepest truth, because you can't involve yourself in anything. There's nothing you can do because there is no doer. So nothing matters. Everything is happening according to its perfect unraveling. And then you fall into the deepest trust imaginable in the cosmos that you live in. So when something bad happens, you don't need to judge it as bad. It's just happening, and it's a part of the perfection of the unraveling of the universe. And when something good happens, the same. You don't judge because you're not choosing. You're flowing through life in a surrendered state. And on the surface, it may not look like that. It may look like you're making decisions and mistakes, but underneath the indwelling awareness, the awakened awareness knows that it's a joke. Not a funny joke necessarily, just a joke. And also, if you happen to be a teacher, or a spiritual teacher like myself, the joke's on you. And you know this, because you may have teachings that you're sharing, and yet you know that those teachings are false. All teachings are false. You know that, because you know that nothing that anyone follows can make anything happen, because there's no free will. So there's no technique to attain the awakened state. There are techniques that can improve your life. There are techniques that can improve your circumstances, that can calm your emotions and your mind, that can engage your mind and your imagination. And if the teachings contain those things, it's because the teacher knows that you need to be distracted in the teachings in order that the magic or the miracle might happen while you're distracted in the teachings. Because the teachings serve to make you more relaxed, to help you worry less, so that you can enter into sacred pauses and create space around yourself, inside yourself, so that possibly in those conditions, awakening might occur. But there's no guarantees, because you have no free will. Neither does the master or the teacher have free will. So nothing anyone says or does can do it, can make anything happen at a spiritual level. And the third truth, and they're really all one, but the third lie is about our inner state, our natural state. And the truth is that our natural state is one of bliss. And the teacher can't say this. The awakened one can't say this. Because unless you experience it, another experiences it for themselves, it's irritating. It's difficult. It feels not grounded in reality, because if you are not experiencing the blissfulness of the silence of the inner awakened state, it's because you are caught in the sufferings of the ego. And the sufferings of the ego are the sufferings of the ego, and it can't suddenly jump from the sufferings of the ego into bliss. So hearing that someone is in bliss is not very helpful. In fact, it can cause more inner stress and self-judgment and disbelief and distrust. Are they really experiencing bliss? Is it true? They're just faking it? But when the awakened being closes their eyes and goes inside, that is truly the experience. It is a blissful awareness, because out of it comes, there's no free will and nothing matters. And therefore all that's left is bliss, because there's nothing to do anymore. And that doesn't mean that doing is not happening. And, the teacher or the awakened one may be very active in the world, helping people and doing, because when the blissful state opens up, the natural state, it's one of love. And love wishes to help people. And it wishes to improve the world. And so that tends to be the direction that being moves in. Of course, some of them simply just close in. They're called the arhats, and they just close in and they go into deep meditation and absorption in that bliss, and they don't do anything more than that. And one cannot judge them for that, because nothing matters, and you have no free will. So you see the dilemmas. And so why am I sharing these things? Another truth that comes out of this, actually, is that people don't want to hear, is that the awakening of the world, because there's this notion of the awakening of the world. One day the world itself is going to awaken to itself. More and more humans will awaken and experience their natural state and imbibe these deep, incredible truths. And slowly heaven will begin to appear on earth. And everyone wants that to happen in their own lifetime. And so another truth that comes out of these other lies is that that's not going to happen in your lifetime. It just isn't. We're not there. We're not even close. And no one wants to hear that, because it then takes the wind out of your sails. Well, what am I working towards? Why should I do anything? The fact is that these things take vast amounts of time. But the beauty of the truth is that is where we are heading, because the enlightened state is testament to that. When you experience the blissfulness of your true nature, you realize that is the underlying state of all beings. This is the teaching of the Buddha. You realize that. You know it in the core of yourselves at every possible feasible level. And so you know that is where everything is heading. You know that there's no choice. Everything one day has to arrive back at its source. There's no choice. And how that happens, no one knows. No one knows. But you know it will happen. But when you look at the world today and you see the way, and even allowing for quantum leaps, it's not going to happen in our lives. It's probably not going to happen for hundreds or even thousands of years. But it's a rolling wave, and we are all cogs in the gears of the awakening process. And so we shouldn't lose heart, because we just need to find the deep trust in the cells of our being. And so the most we can do is create the conditions around us for the awakening miracle to touch down inside us. That's the most we can do. That's the most anyone can do to help create the conditions for that. And that means that we do have to work on our shadows, and we do have to soften our hard edges, and we do need to let go of things and, lessen our victim process so that we're in constant turmoil. And then we come into a quieter space inside ourselves, and we learn to be contemplative, and the inner life blossoms. And the inner life then opens in layers, and the heart begins to soften and open and forgive ourselves. And we drop our self-judgments. And in that softness, I've often said, awakening is a series of softenings. In that softening, we will land in the lap of the divine. Sooner or later, like a soft, beautiful, mossy, green hollow. And we'll land spontaneously one day in that hollow. And we'll be given everything in that moment. And it will never be taken from us from that moment. So all we can do is create the conditions for that moment to occur. And, my whole life, that's what I've been trying to do here with my teachings, the Gene Keys, to create those conditions. But the teachings themselves, they can't get you there. They can only help create those conditions. And no other teaching or teacher can help you get there. Because the way they got there is never going to be the same way for you. It's going to be different. Each person absolutely unique. And you cannot say what that person's path should be. Only you, inside your deepest heart and soul, know what is the correct way for you. So no one else can tell you that. So all we can do is create optimal conditions and hope. And there's a level where you hope, and there's a level where you don't even need to hope either. So whether these things are of any use, I don't know. I felt the urge to speak them today. And there they are, spoken. Thank you.